My name is Mark McGrain. I'm the council commissioner. I would welcome you to your council roundtable. Very excited for this new format. We are having plans of continuing this format on. So part of this is going to be next month. Most districts do their "Yay, we got to summertime" program, and that's what's going to be going on. Is next month is your "Yay, we made it to summertime" program. After that, it'll be another council roundtable. And then August is generally our "Yay, we get to go recruit scouts and bring them in and start a new scouting program here. Yay." And that'll be your district kickoff one. And then after that, every month it'll be the council roundtable. And it'll be following this similar format. And again, surveys will be out there. We'll be really looking for your feedback on that. It's the best way to go. It's the only way to make a great program. So with that, and every good opening starts off with our Pledge of Allegiance. Not uniform or scout salute. I realize you are all muted, so you'll be listening to me. If you would like to unmute yourself for this, you are welcome to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Okay, and now we will be doing our scout oath. Scout sign. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. 2. Our scout law. Scout sign. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. 2. And last but not least, the outdoor code. And just in case you're wondering, yes, this is why I screen share. Okay, scout sign. As an American, I will do my best to be clean in my outdoor manners, to be careful with fire, be considerate in the outdoors, and be conservation minded. 2. Okay. Again, thank you for joining me on that opening. Just to kind of give you an idea of our overall schedule is we had our opening, which is an important part of every unit meeting, that you should have some type of opening, and it can vary. Some of the key components are there. There's always the traditional, and of course, different mix-ups. And as we progress through our roundtables, we'll be having different mix-ups. And of course, if you have a great opening that you like to do, we are always looking for somebody to teach the rest of us something new. So if you have a great opening you'd like to share, please get in contact with your district roundtable commissioner, your district commissioner, or myself, or Anthony Root, our assistant council commissioner for roundtables. And we would love to have you come on to one of our roundtables and show the rest of us something new. We are thrifty. We love to borrow everybody else's good ideas and use them in our programs. So after our opening, we are going to be moving into our keynote speaker. After our keynote speaker, we'll be having a safety moment. From there, we'll take some time to move to the rooms for our breakouts in the Cub Scout Roundtable and then the Scouts, BSA, and Crew Roundtable. We'll come back for our closing. Then we'll move to our district rooms. And then once your district is done with your meeting, then we have the breakout rooms for whenever you'd like to be there, if you want to be there. So it is really my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. I'd like to introduce Tom Miller, who is our Vice President for Camping Program. Tom's going to come on and talk to us a little about the camping program and what he and his committee does and some of the exciting things that are going on. So, Tom, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Patty. For those who don't know me, I'm Tom Miller, Vice President of Camping, like Mark said. The camping committee is made up of about, 20 of us. And our focus is mostly the program at summer camp. And, we design the program, we run it. So camp staff falls under me, shooting sports, the Cub program, and also the day camps. So sometimes I have to make a hard decision, and sometimes the district people have to make hard decisions, and I'm usually involved on that also. we are looking for, more people, as always, at the district and council level. The other thing we are in tune with is the shooting sports committee. They fall under me. So the sporting clays event is usually something I'm talking with Jim throughout the year, making sure everything's good to go. If anybody knows Jim Griffin, I don't really have to talk to him too much. So that's always a good thing. And he has a good team, and we're always looking for more people to help with the shooting sports committee also. Other things we look for is also aquatics. Aquatics is a big program up at Camp Corton, so we're always looking for lifeguards and motorboating instructors also. And that's just not focused for summer camp, but also the off season also. The camping program, just doesn't stop at the end of July. It goes all year. A couple things that we've come out with this year, one being the year-round camper award, something that came back from the Sullivan Trail days. Mark remembers that, as young as he is. It's an award that is given out to either units or individuals that camp 12 months out of the year, which any good scout program knows that you camp 12 times a year or more, depending on your scout program. And we like to recognize those that accomplish that through any year. So if you start, say, in May, that would be your first month, and then May of 2022, you'll complete your year round. So it doesn't matter what month you start, as long as you have 12 months consecutively without missing a month. And yes, that does count for the winter months. You can receive the award. The other thing that we're working on is something back from my childhood, back in the 2000s, is the Where to Go camping campaign. It's basically, cool places to go camping. So say the Allegheny National Forest, there are many spots to go camping there. And some of them, like Morrison, some people don't even know that there's only two ways to Morrison campsite, and that's either walking or by float. It's stuff like that that we need to bring back. I remember last year being told some of us don't even know where to go camping or hiking to help out with the fall hikery that we were putting on virtually. It's stuff like that that we're trying to do. So it'll be a guide that will be compiled of Pennsylvania and also New York, and where to go camping and hiking and other cool stuff. So if you're interested in helping out with that, please let me know. We are always looking for people at the district level to help out and be a source locally also. So, Mark, that will be it for tonight. Oh, yeah, before I forget and before Mark says anything, if you haven't signed up for summer camp yet, we still have many spots besides the second week of Scouts BSA. We are capping that at where our numbers are at right now until we hear from the state of New York. And yes, we are trying to follow all COVID guidelines that we know of right now. And yes, we are still waiting from the Department of Health to give us the final guidelines for this year's summer camp. And that also includes day camp also, which we can also use some help with there too at your local ones. Irwin, Hornell, Towanda, and Elmira. So that will be it, Mark.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. Greatly appreciate it. Camping committee provides a valuable service. And I would encourage in your own committees in your units that you look at having somebody responsible for camping. Where do we go? What do we do? Kind of falls with the equipment as well. So very valuable role. Definitely one of those I would be looking at to fill in the unit. So with that, what I'm going to do is invite our Scout Executive, Brad Boda, and he is going to be coming to talk to us about our safety note. And I will let Brad go ahead and bring in his safety note before I even try to tell you anything about his safety note.
Well, I like whenever I can to tie what we do back to the Scout Oath and Law. So I've got my son's Tiger Handbook here. And what we're going to talk about has to do with the part of the Scout Oath that says to do my duty to my country and to keep myself physically strong, as well as the part of the Scout Law, which says a Scout is obedient Follow the rules of your family, school, and pack. Obey the laws of your community and country. So we're going to talk about our unit COVID policies for the council. And Mark and I do our best to keep up with, as the laws change in both states, updating the policy. And it seems like when we've got it ready to go, and we got it polished and ready to launch, that we've agreed upon it, and then a new law changes, which happened again today. So there will be another update with some changes that are going to happen in Pennsylvania on May 31st, but we're going to wait to revise the policy until after New York changes some more things in a couple of weeks, since we got a while for it to take effect anyway. And Mark, can you put up the new policy we worked out today? Theoretically.
Sorry, you guys keep talking. I got distracted. I'll have it up there in just a second.
So there are some things that have changed that are consistent between both states. One of those items is that fully vaccinated individuals can participate in outdoor activities without wearing a mask. Our council policy does indeed require that whoever is leading the activity needs to confirm that the individual has been fully vaccinated, either by reviewing that person's CDC vaccination record card, or using the electronic app. For those who are in New York, the Excelsior app allows you to carry it conveniently in your cell phone. We're not going to ask you to make copies or record it. We just want whoever is responsible for leading the activity. If someone's going to be running around in the outdoors without a mask on, that they have confirmed that they are indeed fully vaccinated. The CDC guidance, as well as the guidance from the state of New York and the state of Pennsylvania, is very specific that it's if you are fully vaccinated, not if you've had a recent negative test. So that's something we want to make sure is fairly clear. Feel free to allow your scouts and leaders who have been fully vaccinated to participate in activities outside without wearing masks. Anyone who has not been fully vaccinated needs to wear their face covering. Anybody who is inside a building needs to wear their face covering. Social distancing should still be practiced. Let's see here. Can I remember off the top of my head some of the other recent changes? There we go. All right. So I'll briefly review. I think you're all relatively familiar with this. As we have had changes, we have initiated those changes state by state so that we're meeting current local guidance where you are. So council-wide requirements. The guidance provided under the original unit reopening plan issued July 1st, 2020 is still in place, except as noted in this document. Face coverings, 6 feet of social distancing, and pre-event meeting health screening is required for all indoor and outdoor activities. For outdoor activities, fully vaccinated people are not required to wear face coverings, but proof of the vaccination is required. During meetings and activities, the use of cohort groups of dinner patrol size with consistent physical separation of the cohort group is required. Adequate facilities for regular hand washing and hand sanitizer must be available for proper hand hygiene. In the state of New York, beginning on May 10th, non-residential social gatherings, unit meetings of up to 500 people may occur outdoors, provided that face coverings and social distance guidelines are adhered to. Beginning May 19, non-residential social gatherings, unit meetings up to 250 people can occur, provided face coverings and social distancing guidelines are adhered to. And the current travel status is there are no travel restrictions for sports and recreational activities. And scouting would fit under the recreational activities guidance. In Pennsylvania, the April 4th limits for indoor events of 25% of maximum occupancy, regardless of venue size, and attendance limits of outdoor events of 50% maximum occupancy, regardless of venue size, remain in effect currently. I'm going to skip the details on that and give you time for questions and answers in case folks have questions on that point. For unit camping, as of right now, overnight camping is in New York is limited to individuals who live in the same household staying in a campsite. In Pennsylvania, overnight group camping is allowed following the same guidance as meetings and other events. This means 25% of occupancy indoors and 50% of occupancy outdoors. So if the campsite's occupancy is 40, maximum is 20 total people can be in the campsite. In addition, face coverings, 6 feet of distance, individuals providing proof of full vaccination are not required to wear face coverings while outdoors. Follow all the guidelines of the park or campground you are at. Only one person per tent unless they're members of the same household. Patrol or group style cooking is permissible with safety precautions in place. One person should be responsible for preparation of meals. Face coverings, completely covering nose and mouth, and gloves must be worn at all times during meal prep, regardless of vaccination status. Extra attention to sanitation and proper hand hygiene should be followed by cooks. No family style buffet style service is permitted. If meals are prepared in a group setting, the food must be served directly on the plate of the individual who is consuming it by the person who prepared it. Any individual serving food must be wearing a face covering and gloves, regardless of vaccination status. No sharing of utensils, plates, drinking vessels, cookware, or dishwashing water or equipment. For proof of vaccination, as I mentioned earlier, CDC vaccination card or New York State Excelsior Pass need not be recorded, simply verified. According to current guidance, a recent negative COVID-19 test does not remove the face covering mandate in outdoors in either New York or PA. Anyone have any questions about this guidance?
Okay, thank you for that safety briefing. And I'd like to say, has this been put out anywhere yet?
No.
So you mean the people attending Roundtable get the first crack at it?
Absolutely.
That is awesome. Just one more reason to attend Roundtable, to get all the news first before anybody else gets to it. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. Thanks for coming and bringing that to us. All right. So, we do have a question here. So what if a scout has had COVID?
They need to wear a mask, a face covering. The CDC guidelines, as well as New York and Pennsylvania, do not include individuals who have had and recovered from COVID as vaccinated. It is only if you have received full vaccination that you are allowed to not wear a mask in the outdoors.
Yeah. So I guess I want to add on to this just a little bit, just because I know some of the comments that may come afterwards, and Brad can back me up on this. This is one of those things that we hear a lot of questions, and what about this and what about that? I guess the most basic answer I can give you is scouting is all kinds of things. It's fun, it's outing, it's nonprofit, it's a business. We hate to think about the business end of it and the insurance end of it. And for those of you who are here who are trainers, that we train about the guide to safe scouting, and that there are no gray lines in there. It's the black and white. If something were to happen and we weren't following, federal, state, Department of Health policies, procedures, or the council guidelines, we have absolutely no insurance coverage, and neither does anybody else. It didn't become Troop 123's event covered under the BSA policies and their insurance and the health insurance and all that. It became your own personal event because there would be no insurance coverage. So that's what makes it very, very important to follow all these guidelines, because we just can't not do it. So I know sometimes we have a hard time with some of these things, but it's really the most important way to look at it there. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, Brad?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, then, thank you very much. So, what we're going to be asking you to do now, and we're going to see how this works. This is going to be our first attempt at this one, is you can move yourself to your breakout room.
So, in regards to scouting program, we want to provide the very best program for our youth. And we've actually have a presenter who puts together a really great program, or is at least part of a team, okay, that puts together a great program for the BSA. And I'm going to introduce Scoutmaster from Troop 87, Mr. Dan McCauley. Dan, are you with us, Chief?
I'm sure here, yeah. Thanks,
All right, take it away, brother. Thank you very much.
Yep, let me share my screen here. All right, well, thank you guys for having me tonight. I think Anthony put it really well when he said that I'm part of a team. So I'm kind of honored to have been asked to represent Troop 87 in terms of what we think we're doing well. Really pleased to be here, and with me actually is Brenda Anderson, our committee chair. And I couldn't do anything without her, and also the rest of the adult leadership that we have. So, I again appreciate the invite here. So I'm gonna walk through what it was interesting to sit back and think about what I think we're doing well to keep our program really active and keep our numbers up in our troop. So, and I apologize for my voice; the allergies are getting to me right now. So. All right, so moving along then. Really wanted to pause here, and I kind of already alluded to it, is this, having a successful troop, above all, is it takes a village. I'm really thrilled to be part of an incredible team, a caring team, a team that really puts the, putting together a great program for our scouts as a real priority. Everyone in our troop is really busy, myself included. And it's sometimes, you know, it feels like you feel bad because a lot of other people are stepping up when you can't, but that's actually how it works, because everybody gets busy sometime and everyone else kind of steps in. So, so first off, we have in Troop 87, I think at last count, at least 10 assistant scoutmasters. We just had a new few join with the last round of scouts. So really, really thrilled to have such an amazing set of partners. Both men and women that helped me out with planning this program. A full committee. Brenda does an amazing job, and I'll go through kind of how our schedule works in a bit. But Brenda does an amazing job keeping us together for the administrative aspects of the troop and making sure that we are following guidelines and making sure people are getting trained. One of the unique things is that while some people are both scoutmasters and committee members, there's quite a number that are not, right? So we actually have two full groups of people that are at the core of kind of running our troop, and one of the reasons I feel we're so successful. And just to reiterate that we wouldn't be able to do this without the amazing group of adult leaders that I have the pleasure to work with. And Brenda, at any moment, if you want to add anything to each slides, please don't hesitate to speak up.
Dan, can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah. First off, I wanted to talk about how we schedule, because I think this is at the core of running a really solid program. And we're always and simultaneously working on 3 scales of our schedule. We're always talking about what we're doing on a weekly scale, a monthly scale, and then annually. And within annually, I'm also referring to high adventure, which sometimes require 2 years out, at least 1.5 to 2 years out to get reservations in some of the places that we've gone. So, for those have seen us operate, we are a very scout-led troop. And it's always fun to watch new parents that came from Cubs, where it's adult-led, to our troop, and to it's kind of entertaining to watch them cringe a bit when you see the scouts forgetting for a minute that they're leading the show and things are kind of chaotic, but we let it happen, right? I mean, our job is to keep them safe and enable them, but not to do this for them. So, but what we do is create templates for them that let the scouts focus on the plan. Oops, sorry, it looks like I missed a typo, missed some words here. rather than a lot of the administrative stuff behind it. And I'll show you some of the templates that we give them. So when they go to a PLC, they don't have to figure out, okay, what are the dates of the next meetings that we have to get to. That's already there. They just now need to talk about what do they put in to the schedule rather than trying to figure out the schedule. So we try to take care of some of that administrative stuff ahead of time so they can focus there. COVID, in all honesty, did force us to be a bit more adult-led this past year and a half, and that was okay. We talked about it with the leaders, we talked about it with the scouts. There were so many complexities when it first hit. There was a couple of months where we kind of were still all in shell shock and things slowed down tremendously. But as we built it back up, it was clear that this was really a new level of challenge for the scouts. So we did go a little bit more adult-led during COVID, but we are already beginning to back off from that and getting back into more normal operation with it, where the scouts are running the show. So for weekly, again, the scouts run this, the scouts lead this, the scouts control this. What we recommend to them is to have 2 months planned out after every PLC, not just the coming month, but then one after. So in case there's anything that happens with a struggle with getting together for a PLC, we have that cushion. We do have them work to a theme each month. So if they're working on a merit badge, they can focus the theme on that. If they're working on just something fun, they can focus on that. And you can see the schedule over here. This was before COVID. This was in January of 2020, in February, where they actually had a couple of months where they were focusing on winter sports. And so that kind of helps them. If they're really struggling to come up with the schedule, we pull up that list from the book that you get at the scout store that kind of gives you a template of different scout meetings for different themes. If they're struggling, they're like, hey, you guys want to bring up that schedule, that kind of table of contents, and they have things to look at, and they're like, hey, that looks cool, that looks cool, and then they decide to kind of make a theme for the month. Like I said, the adults create the template, but then the scouts focus on filling it in on what they want to do. They focus on the content, and one thing that we really stress is that the scouts assign owners. The PLC isn't done if there isn't a name behind everything that we want to do. Like who's going to call this leader, who's going to call this location where we're going, who's going to do that. So we do nudge them there. If I see an action that doesn't have an owner on it, I'll kind of remind them like, hey, who's doing that anyway? And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah. And then they figure out who's going to do that. So that's kind of what we focus on kind of weekly. We have the PLC once a month. I don't want to get confused here, but they focus on that weekly schedule every PLC. And then going to monthly, and the next slide kind of shows the example there. Also planned by the scouts at the PLC. And in this, we try to have 4 to 6 months planned out. There's fewer things happening, obviously, than the weekly schedule, so we can go out a bit further. Again, pre-COVID and post-COVID, we really tried to get at least one camping in per month. I saw that great little thing on the slide you showed at the beginning that scouting is 70% outing. I really like that. I think I'm going to steal that as well. But camping every month, doing something outside of the troop meetings every month. Sometimes we get too many ideas and we'll have a few months in our year that we're actually doing a couple things, larger scale. So we try to do like a medium to large trip once or twice a year. These are things like going to Washington, D.C., Gettysburg. We had one trip to the Scranton Coal Mine and the Train Museum. So those kind of outside of the area, kind of learning things with a bit more adventure. This isn't quite high adventure, but we try to have 1 or 2 of those a year. They're a lot of work on the adult leads as well as the scout leads. But we try to at least one, and on good years, we've been able to pull off a couple of those to make sure that they have something that draws a higher level of excitement. And again, a template is provided at the beginning of the year. Some of it we pre-populate with favorites from the previous year, just to kind of get their brains going around it. But then they start with that, so it's not just a blank page, and then they go from there. And a key on these ones absolutely is assigning both a scout and an adult lead. And the scouts will actually figure out who that is. Sometimes that adult will be at the PLC, sometimes they won't. And if they're not, they will assign a scout to contact that adult lead to ask. One of the tricks that I have taught, we have taught our scouts, is in terms of getting a volunteer for something. It's at least in my experience, if you ask a room full of people, can I get a volunteer to lead the trip to blah blah blah, whatever it is, 90% of the time you don't get an answer. So what I ask them to think about and do is to think ahead of time which adult, which scout might be a good candidate, and ask them. I don't like to think of it as calling it out in a meeting, but I think it breaks through that little bit of hesitancy to people to raise their hand and speak up. So, and if they don't have it thought ahead of time, then we can help them with that. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking Mr. Such and Such or Mrs. Such and Such will be a good idea for that. But again, very important on these ones, as well as you have an owner that feels something that's been assigned and feels ownership over both an adult and a scout, sometimes multiple, depending on the size of the event. So this is kind of an example. This was back in, I think it was, this was 2020, before COVID shut everything down. This was the plan. And you can see where we have just so basically I'll come in with a bunch of blanks in March and April and May, and then we start filling things in. Again, some things we'll put in, I'll pre-populate from the prior year, just to remind the scouts what we did and things that were fun. Sometimes they keep them, sometimes they ditch them. It's up to them. So this is just kind of to get their brains going around, what do I want to do in March? It's still cold, it might be warm. What am I going to do? And then as we fill things out, that's when we put the specific dates in. So this kind of helps them narrow them down to the month. And again, we try to at least think 4 to 5 to 6 months out in this area. And then over here on the right, we have both the scout owner, and again, we hadn't quite got there yet with the schedule, and then an adult leader. And usually I call out the ones in yellow where we still have a gap. We don't have an owner yet. So it kind of brings attention to it, so we can close on that in PLC. And if there's any questions live while I'm doing this, please don't hesitate to stop me. And then the annual schedule. This is a little bit more heavily facilitated by the adults, but in the end, it's chosen by the scouts. So obviously on the annual schedule is summer camp. And what we do is we will provide 2 to 3 options. Gorton's always on that list. And we've recently, or 2 years ago, we went to the one down near Philly. Which one was that one, Brenda? I can't remember. Akhenaken. And then last year, and again this year, they after presenting the option, they chose Massawepie up in the Adirondack. So that's where we are heading this year. And basically, it feels like they're kind of trying different ones. And we talk about each of the camps, what the kind of the map, sometimes what they have to offer and things of that nature. So we provide options, they choose. And then high adventure. This one this took me a little while. I've been the Scoutmaster for coming up on 4 years here. This one took a little while to get going on because I didn't really grasp how much planning was required for some of these. So we did some things in the summer, but I really feel, at least during my time with the troop, it really got kicked off a couple of years ago when we did a 50-mile hike to the White Mountains. It was a trip that I did when I was a scout back in '83. And it was we tried for 3 years actually to get that one going. And it took finally till the 3rd year before we kind of got our everything organized enough that we were able to pull it off. And it really got us going as an adult group leaders to think that we really have to be thinking multiple years out for high adventure, typically 2. So this year we are doing Sea Base, and again, that was reserved in January of 19 for those that are looking for more of the big ones. And I believe Philmont is a similar type of 1.5 to 2 year type of head. The 50-mile hike in the White Mountains, it wasn't so much about the program as a whole, but reserving spots in the huts Usually that was almost about a month out, but you still had to be about a month, a year out, but about a year and a half before you had the path planned. And so on the first day that you could make reservations, you could make them and kind of lock in the spots that you wanted. And we have also, like I've done our own, I talked about the 50-mile hike, but we were going to do an Adirondack canoe trek this past year. And actually that's what we just postponed and going out to this year. That one doesn't require nearly as much notice on reservation. That was kind of within the year, even probably within an 8-month time frame. But the Scouts are very excited about that. And we did oh yeah, but even before the 50-mile hike was a Frontenac canoe trek. That was probably the first one in the troop, my mistake, where that was again, that was on our own plan with everything. So that one didn't require as much reservation ahead of time, but it still required a tremendous amount of planning to be able to pull it off. So that's kind of how we planned. Again, that's how I like to think about it: the weekly, the monthly, and the yearly as we do this. But how do we run the troop? What's that schedule? So committee meeting is the first Thursday of every month. Brenda's awesome about keeping us honest there and pulling us together. The PLC is typically the same week as the committee, but not always. It can be any time in the month. And they go through the program that I talked about. But another one that I don't know how many other troops do this, but we have a separate Scoutmasters meeting that focuses on the program. And what we typically like to do is 1 week after the PLC, because the PLC tell us what they want to do. And then our goal at Scoutmasters is how do we enable that plan that they just asked for? And we will, and of course we've been doing that for over Zoom for the last year and a half. But that's the goal of the Scoutmasters meeting. We assign adult leads where required and maybe where it's been missed in the PLC. And that's also where we discuss sensitive topics. If we have a bullying situation, or if we have Scouts maybe not advancing, or a Scout we see pulling back, we'll talk about those sensitive topics. And then we'll usually we'll talk about which older Scout is a good pair up for that younger Scout to figure out what's going on and how they can nudge them. As you guys know, a younger Scout will listen to an older Scout way before they ever listen to the boring adults. So we try to pull in an older Scout that has the right maturity level to get their help when we have some of those situations. Obviously, only sharing enough details with them that is appropriate, but it works really well when they get that coaching from another Scout. And then my last slide, and I'm going to hand it over to Brenda, is the things that we've had to do differently during COVID. We learned really quick that we had to minimize Zoom wherever possible. We did it when it was necessary, Court of Honors and things where we needed the whole troop to kind of talk about things and vote, but we really tried to minimize it. And we met, but we had to do it differently. So we met outdoors. We did temperature testing and the masks. We met all of our guidelines, and everything became patrol sized. And one thing we actually did is when we started when we were getting into the beginning of all the COVID stuff, we asked the current Scout leadership if they would mind staying on 2 more months, and we delayed elections. We shifted our whole election schedule until we got good at how to do things in COVID, because we had that experience of those Scouts that were in that position, and they agreed to do that, which was really great. And then when we did change over to the new leadership, we really had a serious talk with the patrol leaders that it wasn't the normal patrol leader anymore. They were like mini SPLs, because each meeting was theirs now. It wasn't the SPL, the senior patrol leaders anymore. Each patrol leader now were kind of in charge. The SPL, and we have 2 assistant senior patrol leaders, they would distribute among our 3 patrols, but who was in charge was that patrol leader. And we got commitment from all of them. We had really Zoom to Zoom conversations about, do we have your commitment to do this? And they all said yes. So that's kind of how we did that. And so that's kind of some of the main changes that we did during COVID. And we've been able to keep most of our numbers. I think we've had 2 or 3 that may have faded away over this time. And I think it's not completely unexpected that was going to happen, but we retained the vast majority of our Scouts. And I think some of the things that I went through here was a lot of the reason. that we were able to do so, keeping that good schedule and keeping them engaged. And then I'm going to hand it over to Brenda, who really leads our Road to Eagle program, and for her to talk about what she does there.
Thanks, Dan. That was a great segue, because I did want to just reiterate to people that we didn't lose a lot of kids through this. We just really talked as adults to find ways to keep kids engaged in scouting, because there wasn't a lot going on for kids. And so we just really focused on having some good program planning. We did Zoom when it was freezing cold, so that because we couldn't really be outside sometimes, but we really kept a lot of our kids engaged, and I think that's pretty important. The part that I'm going to talk about is sort of how do we get kids to Eagle. I have known many, first of all, I've been committee chair for about 3.5 years. I came a little after Dan. And I really pride myself on the fact that our troop takes kids all the way through to Eagle. I've known a lot of these kids, and I know Dan has too, because Dan was in a pack before he was in a troop. We've known a lot of these kids since they were Tigers. And to sort of take them through that entire scouting journey is just really, I don't know, I get kind of teary thinking about it, because in Dan's tenure, so in about 3.5 years, we've had 11 Eagles. And so why have we been so successful here? You know, I think part of it is that we really individualize and focus for kids. So Dan was talking earlier about how in Scoutmaster meetings, sometimes we talk about sensitive topics. And I will say that I go to Scoutmaster meetings and Dan comes to committee meetings. And I think that's a really nice bridge to sort of tie the adult leadership piece to the kid and program. But we talk about kids that might be struggling, and we work to sort of make sure that an adult in the group sort of picks them up and takes them along. And I think that's the same when we hit our Life Scouts. So when kids hit Life Scouts, traditionally, we start to see a bunch of them sort of, they come in big waves. And I will put together a meeting with all these potential Eagles and their families, just to say, hey, this is what's next. Because I think sometimes this trip from Life Scout to Eagle Scout can be a big mystery for kids. And it can be more, and if we can help them through that, we can get more kids through. I give them some support materials that I sort of put together, a little outline. I've got some links for them. And we just really talk about, like, what does this process look like? A lot of times we will have kids that have been Eagles in that meeting and they can talk. A lot of times we have adult leaders that have been Eagles, like Dan and a couple of other leaders that we have, that talk about, like, what was your experience like? What was it like when you became an Eagle or when you were on that trail? But the other thing that we try to do is we try to build capacity within that group of Life Scouts to lean on each other. And I'll always say, if you have a question about XYZ, who can you go to? And we sort of brainstorm, and they'll be like, oh, I can go to this scout because they're already an Eagle, or I can go to this leader because they know. So, but we try to build camaraderie and in that group of Life Scouts so that they can then lean on each other. If they need something for paperwork, they know who they can talk to, so that they're not always going to an adult. We also encourage at this point in time, like, kids to start thinking about, like, your project is going to be, really busy for you. What do you have left for merit badges? Where do you stand with that? So we can just really give them an awareness of what they still have to do. And then during this meeting, we also brainstorm ideas together, potential projects. So I'll go around the room and I'll say, hey, you're almost there. What are you thinking about? And kids will throw out some ideas. We've also encouraged some guest speakers to come into our group. So we have some really good connections in the community with Tanglewood. We have some connections with the Audubon Society, with the town of Big Flats, Chemung County Soil and Water, our chartered organization. And we will invite people to come into our meetings and say, we've got some ideas for some projects. If you're still thinking about some, maybe you want to come do XYZ with us. So I think that just that involves the community, but it also gives the kids some ideas of, hey, yeah, I wanted to build something. Maybe I can go work with Tanglewood, or maybe the town of Big Flats has something for me. So it just creates those community connections. All right, Dan, flip the slide. So once kids are to the point where they're starting to fill out some paperwork and they're working on their project plan, a lot of times they will send their documents back and forth between Dan and I, and they will ask for feedback, and we will give them some feedback because, you know, a lot of these kids are still young learners. You know, we've had some freshmen that are still like in the process of not really understanding how to be professional. And so Dan is fantastic at being, you know, a leader and a role model to these kids. And he really shows them like, what do you need to do to have a professional looking project or a professional looking plan. But prior to meeting with that kid to sign, you know, get the final lowdown and to sign some paperwork, there's a lot of documents that go back and forth, and we offer feedback, and then kids make some corrections. So it's a whole nice drafting process. When they're ready to get some signatures, or they think they're ready to get some signatures, the three of us will meet. So the kid and Dan and I, and we'll discuss their project plan. We'll ask them questions. We'll kind of finalize it. And then we'll talk about like, okay, now what? Now that we've signed your paperwork, do you know what you're going to do next? And sometimes they're like, no. And sometimes they're like, yeah, I think I have to. And we'll sort of guide them down that process. Yep, you're right. You need to do this. And then you need to do that other thing. And then they go about and do their project, and they will invite us to come work on it or be part of it. And then when they're complete with that project, we sort of, you know, we'll guide them through finishing their paperwork, making sure that all their requirements are complete, answering any questions they have about how to complete the Eagle application. And then, and we're at that time, we are also still saying, if you've got a question, like, who could you lean on? We just had some Eagle Scouts. Do you think you could reach out to them? And, you know, they typically do, their friends. When we're all done, Dan and I have been meeting the past probably 8 kids at least, if not 9. We have sort of done that final Scoutmaster conference and signatures and paperwork and closure with the kid. And it's a really nice sort of culminating thing for the kids to have a conversation. And a lot of times Dan has seen their entire scouting career, or I have seen their entire scouting career. And so we just do a lot of reflecting and talking about, you know, where are you? Where have you come? Where are you going? We sort of, you know, ask them some questions about, are you ready for the next step, which is your board of review? And what do you think you're going to do to prepare about that with that? And they usually can come up with some good stuff. And I would say that in general, while they're going through this process, we're constantly checking in with kids. A lot of times it's because we go to their Eagle Project work days and we can see what's going on, but we're checking in with them. How are you doing? What do you need? And then, like Dan had mentioned before, and, you know, I alluded to, we do identify kids that are struggling at this stage. And some kids do. Some kids will start a project and then they decide they're going to do something else and they have to go in another direction. But we do identify those kids that are struggling and either try to like help them ourselves, or sometimes they need to be pointed in a direction of, hey, how about asking this adult to help you with this piece? So we try to connect them with someone that can help them to successfully complete their project. So I think that's about it. That's all I had.
And I think we have, how many active projects going on right now?
We
4?
have at least 3. We have at least 3 or 4 active projects. Yes. And I know that there's a couple out there that kids are working on. So yeah, it does kind of come in waves like that.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. And so I don't have any more slides after that as well too. So I thought that was a nice cap. So that was kind of our take on why we think we're able to, how many, what would you say active scouts we have right now? I think it's 24, 25.
Yeah, so we also have a girls troop,
Yep,
a
yep.
troop of girls. So we have a troop 87B and 87G. So between the two, we're a few over 30.
Okay, yeah. So with that, I'll close it up for any questions or comments or whatever. that you guys would like to talk about, or we can pass it on to the next agenda item.
Dan, I'll say thank you very much. That was very informative. I think you're good at great job with it. And I know you're talking at the same time, so I sent you a message. I don't know if you might be willing to send that PowerPoint through the chat room, or send it to me later on, and I can post up. I think a lot of people would love to be able to review that again later on, if you don't mind.
I sure can. No problem at all.
That would be awesome.
Yep.
And Brenda, thank you very much.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. It's a pleasure.
Great.
Hand it off to you.
Okay, great. Give me just a minute. I am going to get into the other chat rooms, breakout room, and let them know they can come back in. So as we're waiting for them the Cub Scouts, I just sent them a message, which you probably all saw, about joining us. Program planning is huge, right? It's one of a planned program, and this goes back to one of the adages we've heard before, is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's important to have a plan, and not only a plan, a backup plan. So for those of you who know me, you know that this is already true. For those of you who don't, this roundtable just didn't come off because we slapped it together. We had plans with backup plans, and in some of my cases, I'm right on plan. In other cases, I'm on plan B, and on other cases, I'm in plan C. So the entire roundtable is set up with multiple plans because we plan the activity to make it go smooth. And that's a huge thing with our unit meetings and the overall unit plan, is to have everything planned out. One of my old friends, he used to have a little adage that he called MARF, which is, maintain absolute rigid flexibility. And that's just part of our program planning process, is to, you make the plan, you set the plan, but realize it doesn't have to be firm. We always have ways to change the plan to make it go in and work. So with that, it looks like we have everybody back. Again, I hope everybody had as much fun in the other one as we had here. It was a very informative program. I really got a lot out of it there, and I hope you did as much from your Cub Scout one. So with that, I am going to do another quick little screen share here. And I'm sure most of us recognize that man right there. And one of the things I just wanted to talk about is that, many things that we enjoy in life are due to regular people having dreams. Sometimes the solution of things can happen from our dreams when we're sleeping. Google was born from a dream. Larry Page had. The sewing machine was actually a result of somebody's nightmare. Elias Howe in 1845. Can you imagine a nightmare that created a sewing machine? But one of the most famous individuals in history, Albert Einstein, came up with the theory of relativity, which it was from a dream involving cows and a farmer, and his viewpoint during his dream. Can you imagine that? Dreams are not subject to only happen when we're asleep. The second part of the definition of the noun is a cherished aspiration, an ambition, or an idea. Sometimes we hear the phrase, may all your dreams come true. This could be an idea that you have to fix or to make something better. This could be a hope that things can change for the better. One man has a very famous speech that includes the phrase, I have a dream. This man was Martin Luther King Jr. In 1963. He shared his dream from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with the world. That day, he shared his dream that his 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Sometimes our dreams may seem far-fetched or hopeless. Don't listen to the dream stealers. With a little hard work, perseverance, you can make your dreams come true. Continue to dream about how you can make life better for yourself, for your others, and act upon those dreams. We think sometimes it's hard that we don't see a larger unit. We don't see the adults that can come in and help us volunteer. We don't see how that camp out can be fun. We don't see how that event might be an interesting idea. But if you have a dream about that event, that program, how your unit can grow and what your unit can be, you should follow that dream. That's what provides the inspiration and aspirations to do better. And in the same thing, we want to encourage our youth to have those dreams, those inspirations and aspirations to make for a stronger program. Without those dreams, where would we be today? Where would our program be? So hugely important that we follow those dreams and keep them going strong for us. So that would be, as many of you are familiar with, a Scoutmaster's Minute, or a Cub Master's Minute, or a Crew Advisor's Minute, or a Senior Patrol Leader's Minute, or. They're an important part of every meeting, that they have some type of wrap up that kind of brings in the topic that you were talking about, maybe something new that's occurred, something going on in the community, but the food for thought phase on that. And of course, like every good meeting, we'll always have our food for thought part, our closing moment. While you're going on to the next areas, I am going to be sharing out in the chat room to everybody is we have a little bit of a survey. I am always a really, really, really big fan that nothing gets better without feedback. We can't really make this your program if you don't tell us how it went. So I'm going to ask you, you don't have to do it now, just, save the link, and if I can get the link to copy correctly, save the link and go back at some point and please take a minute to fill out the survey. It's not even that long. We would greatly appreciate any feedback that you have about this. The program only gets better with your feedback on that. So with that, recap of how the next few parts go here. The recording is going to be ending. We now have the time for you to move to your district rooms. So the pros can correct, or whoever's running their district room, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, Carl, you have Andase and Andy Waters meeting together, and that room is labeled as such. You will see a room that's labeled TB for Thunderbird, another room labeled for Williamson Road or WR. Please feel free, as soon as I'm done talking, to start moving yourselves to those rooms. When your district is done with whatever you guys are going to do there, those district rooms will remain open as long as you need them to. So if you need to have district conversations after their part, great. Other than that, the other rooms are open. Again, free topics of conversation. And you'll notice there's just the general good old talking section there for anybody who wants to go in there and just generalized chat, catch up, see a friend, whatever it may be. I really want to thank everybody who came and presented tonight. That was all volunteers helping us out and providing how their program works good for them. I'd like to thank everybody who came here and attended and got the information and can take it back to their units. And, we'll be putting out schedules of what the topics are we're going to be covering, so you can look for it ahead of time and know our full schedule on out. So, and I see that they did put up their PowerPoint in the chat room for that. So we will get that as well and have that with our material later on. So again, I just want to thank everybody for coming and being here. And with that, thank you. And feel free to move on to your district rooms. And I'm going to stop the recording.